Maybe I need to check and see if I need to update something. All right. Data harvesting. Um, we're talking about neuro interface technology, or brain computer interfacing, and how it's going to be non-invasive. Like it's already going from, installing a brain chip to not even having that. It's going to be something that they can just put around your head. The data that they're harvesting from you, your mind, is more valuable than gold. It's predictive control, it's not reactive marketing. I watched this show called, it's got Nick Cage in it. It's Dream, some sort of dream movie. But they were creating this device that you can wear, and if you wear the device, basically you get all these ad downloads into your mind while you're sleeping. So you get all these advertisements. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for telling me. Just be sitting here talking to myself for a minute. Um, so the next thing is efficiency and control narrative. So right now we're going over why are they building this new frontier. So it's framed as helping humanity. Yeah. So first thing is it's faster healthcare diagnostics. We'll be able to tell what your blood sugar is. We're going to be able to tell you what your heart rate is, your sleep patterns. Just wear the devices. They're just getting you used to it so that later, when it comes time to adopt the next level of it, they've already shown you that they're just helping humanity. Frictionless shopping, just saying, hey, Alexa, add whatever to cart, and pay for it. Then the other thing, which is kind of cool, is instant language translation. So let's say you go to Mexico and, maybe you don't speak Spanish, but now you're able to understand what they're saying in Spanish. And so that will help you to understand that information from this really interesting level. It's it's a way to normalize it, to be seen what's going on. Hello. Thank you and welcome. I don't think I've seen you on here before. But it's a way to normalize this continuous surveillance under the skin, in the brain, but eventually it's not even going to be invasive, you guys. Like right now they're doing like invasive brain chips and it's unsuccessful. But the technology I think is going to go to where it's just non-invasive. It's just a wearable that you can wear and they're going to be able to tap into all your mental capacity, all your mental executive functions. So the nervous system, they're going to be able to control and interact with your nervous system that reacts before you act. Okay, so you'll be easier to steer. Like they already trialed, I think it was like a band that you can put on. So they trialed it with freight truck drivers. Hi, Callie. Bill Gates said digital tattoos. I don't quite know how digital tattoos. I like your makeup. Thank you. I don't quite know how digital tattoos will work, but curious about that. KHOF King. Hello. Okay. Moving on, transhumanist vision. So I did a full stream on transhumanism, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, but there are certain Silicon Valley leaders that want to merge humanity with machines to keep up with AI, okay? They see our biological limitations as this weakness, and they're really involved and invested in this frontier built on the creed of upgrade or be obsolete. Okay, so there's this Musk, Ray Kurzweil, the Silicon Valley leaders who are very much pro-transhumanist think that if you don't upgrade with technology, you're obsolete. All right. And then escape from human fragility. There's the reason why they're building this frontier is there is certainly is a fear of mortality. So if you digitize yourself, then you're immortal. Okay. There's a fear of irrelevance, which if you don't augment your intelligence, then you're irrelevant. Okay. And then there's a fear of chaos that the people that are really promoting this frontier think that they can engineer better humans by merging them with technology, either in a cyborg way or, however it's going to look for that. This is why they're building this frontier. Oh, no problem. This is why they're building this frontier. They want optimization of all of this technology without surrender. They don't want to surrender to anything. They want to be the ones that win. They want the power. They want the power without any humility that comes along with that, which is interesting because I was talking about Brene Brown and how Brene Brown, thank you. I was talking about Brene Brown and how Brene Brown had mentioned, the thing that made her famous was saying that vulnerability is not a weakness. But here you have all of these leaders that are operating where they're not being vulnerable. They're not operating in humility. They're not surrendering to the design that we are. Okay? They see our human nervous system because it's sometimes slow. They see that as a bottleneck. Hi, Rebecca. Random Roblox goober. I've never played Roblox. I watched somebody play it, but I never played it. They see humans as too slow, too emotional, too messy. But our nervous systems are a foundation. Like, they're wanting to interface with it. They're wanting to upload our consciousness into the technology. So how can we be obsolete when that's the case? Emojis called lols. Are those the lols? I didn't know those were lols. I love dogs. Awesome. Okay, so that's some of that. All right, so we're looking at the human nervous system versus the synthetic nervous system. The frontier of this synthetic nervous system that's being created in this technology, what they're calling weak is our slow reaction. So our nervous system impulses travel at 250 miles per hour. Okay. Computers, on the other hand, can compute billions of ops per second. All right. Why is there bats in their house? Because I see some in the background. Yeah. I couldn't get rid of them during last Halloween. I get admin from YouTube. Uh-oh. I don't know what that means. What they call weak is they think that our nervous system, like our bodies, are unreliable because of fatigue, trauma, stress responses, that we can even be dysregulated shows that we're weak. Because I see some in the background. I put them up. Yeah. And then because our emotions can distort our judgment, that is also another way that we are seen as weak by the transhumanist. And there's been lots and lots of political ideology that has been, framed into this. So, what is actually necessary? So, the signal source, all biometrics, come from nervous system function. Okay, without it, wearables don't have any data stream to pull from. So, we are actually necessary for these technologies to work, for the BCI to work, for the neural interfaces that are coming. AI can detect stress spikes, but it can't tell you the why of that stress spike without any human context. So I went through this before in one of my digital age podcasts of what is AI sentience versus like what makes us different from that AI or the sentience that can come out of AI. What is AI? Artificial intelligence. Um, Adaptive intelligence. So we have adaptive intelligence, okay? We have what is called neuroplasticity in our brains, and it allows us to evolve and learn and detect. Like, we have neuroplasticity that, the memory that we can hold stays with us until we like learn something, until we become, experts. So that neuroplasticity is important, which is necessary, like, which is essentially adaptive intelligence. Aw, thank you. Aw, you're sweet, Rebecca. The next is embodiment. So embodiment is not often talked about, but it's very, very important to interacting with these neural interface devices or the technology. So our nervous system roots us in our experience, okay? If you strip out that experience, you lose that human that you're trying to upgrade. Okay. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a myth. There's this like, I don't even want to call it an urban legend, but when Walt Disney, like the founder Walt Disney of Walt Disney, died, everyone said that he had cryogenically froze himself and was going to be thawed out when they could figure out, what happened to him. He was cremated. That's not a true story. But, I was like, so people are cryogenically freezing themselves, and the technology to actually unfreeze themselves, as long as the nervous system is intact, you can likely be uploaded into, I don't even know if I can't remember what all the definitions are of like cyborg, or I watched all the alien movies. I should know this, but there were cyborgs, and then there were, what are the other things? Well, whatever they are. Oh, clones, and then there was one where it's like the David. I always remember the David. Dude, he was cutthroat. The David. Yeah. Anyhow, embodiment is important. So embodiment is like this beautiful experience of like being really embodying like all the things. So having, your mind available, being able to embody those emotions, like having the sentience, but then also the sapience of being a human is like what makes us really different from any other being that's out even in our 3D world. Like our animals, the animals, some of them have slight sapience, but not all of them. So, hello, Mike. Yeah, NPCs necessary in games. Oh, thanks for the sub, Rebecca. I appreciate you. Oh, necessary in games. Okay. So moving on, the end game. So if this, I don't believe that there's like one way or another. This is not like a crossroads. For me, time is not linear, meaning that we are not all on the same timeline. I talk to people. I talk to a lot of people. Okay. I love talking to people, but I talk to a lot of people and I can tell when people are not on my timeline because they can't understand the things that I'm saying. So when people come in to my live stream and I'm talking about some pretty deep topics, this is not, you know, dinner or tea with the queen, right? This is like midnight at a bonfire, 3 a.m. at a bonfire discussions. And so I can tell when like people are not on my they're not on my level, they're not on my timeline. And so we have multiple timelines going on at multiple times. So 4 and 5D, think of those dimensions of spaces that you can be living in reality in. Port Bear. You came just in time, Port. We're talking about some deep stuff. So with the feminine energy, it's a cyclical timeline, right? So a feminine energy is going to see things not in this linear fashion like that masculine linear fashion. Feminine is looking at things in a cyclical timeline of, okay, things are born, now it's this, and then it goes back, and it's just in this cyclical fashion of things processing. You're fishing right now? That's so cool. I love fishing. I love swimming, actually. Um, so when I say end game, I'm not saying it from this like there's no hope because I believe there's always hope. There's always a way out. I'm saying end game in like this frontier that we're talking about if left unchecked. So if we don't do anything, we're going to have full data harvesting of like immediately of our minds with no privacy, think 1984, but maybe even, I don't even know it, if 1984 would hold a candle to it or a torch to it. Um, every thought, every reflex, every emotion captured becomes marketable data. Okay. And they're really sophisticated with it now. Now imagine if they had access to all of your thoughts and your emotions and your intentions of like, I want to do this. Then they just start marketing it to you. And then you just become this like energy suck harvest station. And your body just becomes this constant transmitter to all of these big tech companies. And the big tech companies don't know how to integrate feminine mother wisdom into their systems. That's why I shouldn't say make a claim, but that's why I believe um, tech, the tech companies right now, they have the worst burnout rates, and they have the worst trust in their leadership. They're constantly being just burnt out. They're just constantly being drained. And there's a number of reasons why, but they're the they're being harvested by their business, by their companies. Okay. What does cyclical mean? So cyclical is like seasonality. So is it seasonal? Something is born, it grows. Right now we're coming into a harvest time here in the Pacific Northwest, and eventually it's going to start raining and everything is just going to kind of fall away, and then we're going to have winter, but then it gets reborn again. So that's cyclical. That cyclical timeline. Like end the game, limbo, tidal wave, bloodbath, ultra violence, explorers, skeletal shenanigans. I'm going to talk about skeletons here in a bit, Rebecca. 9 circles. I spy with my little eye. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Okay, so the next part of the end game of these tech frontiers of the neural interface technology is the nervous system responses that they're going to be able to collect as data. They're going to be able to use to predict dissent, compliance, and buying habits, amongst other things. Okay, so you're going to be, because they're going to have access to all of your thoughts, they're going to be able to predict what your next move is. And it's almost like this weird form of control, because then anytime that you start interacting with the devices, it's like, oh, we already know what you're going to do. So there's a case study that went out, and they were able to detect with this case study that before you actually intend on a decision, before you even make a decision, 10 seconds before you make that decision, the decision's already made. 10 seconds before you make a decision, you've already made that decision. Okay, there was a case study that proved that. And so when we're talking about predictive governance, it's kind of in the same field here, but now they're able to tap into your thoughts and your intentions and your perception and your mind, your emotions, okay? So you become very predictable, and now they can see how that. How is your brain supposed to know that? That's what makes it so cool. I love science. They were doing it. It was based on, they had all these letters, and so the people that were participating in the study, they were typing whatever letter they were seeing, and so that's what I'm trying to get at. It's crazy. Okay, so moving on, governments and companies can intervene before any action is taken. So talk about surveillance state. Like, this is surveillance state on steroids. All right. The next thing is cyborg normalization. So neuroprosthetics marketed first, they first start with health. That we're helping you. We're helping you. This is healthy. Okay. And then later on, it's optional. They have optional upgrades. Oh, this is the basic. This is the basic prosthetic. But if you want a better looking one that looks more realistic, then we have this option, but it's a little bit more. Neurologically, if we're looking at that, it's like having that on there, and then you're able to think faster. You're able to recall things faster. You're able to boost your focus a lot easier. What's cyborg? Cyborg is when a human and technology, like you integrate technology onto your body. And then eventually opting out will look like a disability. So if you're just 100% normal human without any cyborg upgrades, you have a disability. And that's the progression to how it goes. If you don't have a smartphone, you have a flip phone, people probably look at you funny. Right? If you have a landline and no cell phone at all, you probably get looked at even more funny. Why did you say it like that? Please don't do that again. I don't know what I said. The next phase of this end game is where transcendence is uploaded into a consciousness. Okay? I'm at 20%, so I'm going to have to wrap it up. I can't get to all my stuff. Transcendence is you have an upload of consciousness, okay? Or at least some pieces of it into shadow form. And then there's the transcendence promise of immortality. It's not your soul immortal. This is your body immortal. Okay? People, I remember when this stuff was getting talked about on Alex Jones, like back 10 plus years ago, and like he was all excited about it. I've heard some other, religious people talk about it and they're all excited about it. And, I still haven't really, I've thought about it, but really haven't come to terms with how how that's going to pan out. Would I want to live a lot longer than I already do? I don't know. I don't know. So that is this frontier of transhumanism. And this is not anything that I'm like, oh, this is the way it's going to happen. That's not what I'm saying here. This is just a timeline that these big tech transhumanist thought leaders are kind of working towards at the moment. How did you know I was going to ask? Uh, I don't know. Maybe we're entangled already. If we're in an entangleship, Rebecca. Um, okay. So the next part of this, as we're looking at different sides of how this could play out, the other piece is just recognizing that our sovereignty, our ability to author our own stories, are like they need our consent for all of this. The universal law of consent cannot be violated unless you allow it to be violated. I cannot tell you how deeply I feel this in the moment because I've been really thinking about what the law of consent truly means, and some people can call it, free will. I'm just going to call it the law of consent right now. So it's a universal law that you have to consent to something. And if you don't consent to something, it has to be respected. You cannot be forced to do something that you do not consent to. So if you say no, it's your sacred no. That is your sacred technology that you have. Okay. That's first and foremost. I want to say that. A couple years ago, my mom got sick with cancer and it was in her prefrontal cortex and all of her executive function went out. So she was unable to do any form of consent for herself. So I was held with, I was left like making all of these choices for her. Do you end life? How do you end it? Do you choose quality over quantity or do you choose quantity over quality essentially? Of do you do this allopathic treatment or do you do a different form of treatment, right? So we're trying to figure out how are we going to treat the cancer, the tumor that she's got in her brain that's inoperable. So that taught me a lot about the law of consent and why it's so important. Around the same time, my son's father was almost in a, like, he was like so close to being in a diabetic coma. It was like his blood sugar was like 700 or something. I go and I see him. I'm like, do you want me to call 911 for you? Law of consent, right? Do you want me to call 911 for you? Because, like, there's a point where you have to consent unless they're unable to make those decisions, okay? I ended up calling 911. He's still with us. And then just recently, my uncle, again, we're talking about, oh, my mother passed away. Rebecca says, everyone in the chat was up. No, my mother passed away. And then recently, my uncle got into a car accident. And hi, Port. Oh, I think you're saying hi to Rebecca. But my uncle got into an accident, and he also didn't have an advance directive. And now, again, I'm sitting here making these consensual decisions, medical decisions for my uncle. And I'm looking at like, okay, this is why like the layers that are there are important, right? In Oregon, which is the state I live in, it starts if they don't have anything that's a will or an advance directive, which is says like, if I end up in this condition, please do this. If I end up in this condition, please do this. So if you're out there, just do an advance directive. Just go through, have an advance directive party, whatever you got to do, like go do it, because it's putting your consent on somebody else is like, it hurts. Unless like that person is like a crazy, like authoritative, controlling person like that, it hurt me because I'm like, what would they want? And so I'm sitting there and trying to deliberate. What would my mother want? What would my uncle want? What would my, ex want? Like, what would they want to have happen? And can I make that decision for them? Are they able to like, you know, somehow show me that, yeah, I'm doing the right thing? So consent is super huge. So as, I'm talking about how important it was in those situations to make sure that I was operating, because it is a life or death situation for all three of those people. It was a life or death situation that when you have that over somebody else, like you realize like how much power that is. So you have that same power, but for yourself, the consent. And that whomever is building this end game scenario, or they're trying to like bring in this certain type of way of life, like you either consent to it or you don't. Okay. They want what they want, but they can't always get what they want. Okay. That's the thing. All right. So with that said, I want to say that your nervous system is where that consent comes from. It's all up here in this higher mind. So your brain is like kind of part down here in the back. And then you've got a higher mind, that dorsal part of your brain. Particularly up here is where all that executive function happens. Your attention, language, decision making, emotional regulation, it all sits up here. And so that nervous system is like super relying on having contact with it. Obviously, the nervous system is going to pull from here, and it's so close to your amygdala. And so that's why it's one of the first places where if something happens and you react to it, like let's say somebody throws a ball at you and you catch it, like that was your nervous system survival mode reacting to protect you. And that's a good reason to have one. But then it takes a little bit of time to get back up to here. And when this is activated, this is impaired. So when this is activated, this is impaired. And so you can access all of that once this is basically turned on. It's like a circuitry. So think of there being like a light switch between the two there. So your nervous system is not weak, okay? So yeah, it might operate slower than computers, but it's sovereign. It has a soul. It has sapience. It's able to access wisdom. It's able to like be novel. It's able to like be silly and fun and humorous. And it's the one system that they're like they're trying to replace it with silicone, but it can only mimic some parts of it, okay? Alex Jones. I know. Hey, sorry for your loss. Hi, Tyler. Good to see you. Please stop, Mike. Stop what? I was talking about Alex Jones earlier. Okay. So they cannot completely replicate your central nervous system. They can pull from it. So they can parasitize it. So we want to start first and foremost with ourselves of reclaiming our nervous system. It's good to see you too, Tyler. We want to reclaim our nervous system intelligence and really just be connected with that. That's what my primer program is, nervous system first intelligence. And by doing this, it helps to counter the transhumanist tech endgame, okay? I don't do what I'm doing, and I'm not writing my book to not make a big impact. Like, I want it to be the arrow in Achilles' heel. I want it to be the stone in David's sling when he hits Goliath, right? I'm writing this playbook to activate our leaders to be nervous system first, because you have to have a stable foundation of your own nervous system and be able to access all of the areas of your brain that you need in order to counteract the current endgame frontier that is going on. You are valuable, okay? The frontier will lose its leverage once leaders and people regain their central nervous systems. Right now, I just see it out of whack all over the place. Oh, have you been? One day I'd love to be a mod. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers and I'll start electing mods. Okay, the next one is if people live from their nervous systems instead of outsourcing to machines. So that's the pièce de résistance. If we can get people to live in their nervous systems and to be present in their nervous systems to where they're in rest, digest, repair, and regenerate mode, then you don't need to upgrade into these cyborgs or technology. You don't need the prosthetics of what they're building right now. Why? Because when you're in rest, digest, repair, and regenerate, it's like the fountain of youth that nobody talks about. It's the fountain of youth. You're repairing your body, you're regenerating your body, and it's possible, but you have to be in a regulated nervous system state. It's really, really difficult to do that when we have all of these companies, all of this leadership, families, religious institutions, when they're dysregulated, and we're tapping into that dysregulation, whether it's logging into Facebook and, getting that energy, logging into, I don't know what, dating apps and whatever else, like virtual reality, video games, or whatever, like that energy is entering into your nervous system. So you have to be able to know where your energetic boundaries are to protect your energy, which is, your decision making, your attention, your emotion, like all of this stuff is important, not just to you, but they see it as valuable. They see that as a resource that they want to mine. All right. From a young age, that's how they will normalize it. Wait, did I miss something? Okay. Oh, I did. Oh, sorry. Hearts. I've been here for a long time. Okay, cool. You will one day, real soon. I'm waiting on it. It's going to be exciting. You think they'll roll out towards kids mostly at first for learning? So not towards kids first. It's usually health stuff. It's usually health and well-being stuff. So think about that. Think about the cell phone. Well, even think about the beeper, right? Kids were from wealthy families that could afford it were getting these beepers. And so the parents could hone in on where they were at immediately when landlines and payphones